World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
It's just so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
Kyalami, a circuit which for many a driver is one that they haven't necessarily had the chance to prepare and understand. This is a circuit which, for many a season, for many a year that's gone by, was considered a relic, was considered a place of foregone success, for example, in Formula One. Now, though, it has changed, and it has become arguably one of the greatest hidden gems that motorsport has to offer. And it is today of all days where we start our scene with 5 rounds worth of championship. This is the Alpine GT4 Championship with you and World Pro Racing, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and on Twitch, as well as with motorsport.tv, with TVM Sport, and with ESTV, the Esports Television Network. My name's Jake Sperry, Alex Goldschmidt here alongside me for the ride. And Alex, we talk about this, it's low-powered in terms of vehicle. It's a very, very difficult track to try and get correct throughout the entirety of the lap here at Kyalami, and one which offers many a place to go and make overtakes happen.
Good evening, Jake. Good evening, everybody. Yes, very much the Alpine A110 GT4, announced previously at the 2018 Geneva Motor Show. It's 1.8 litres, inline 4-cylinder, turbocharged. It's mid-mounted and rear-wheel drive. Okay, it's only pushing out 250 brake horsepower, but around a technical circuit like Kyalami, the power to weight distribution and also the centre of gravity might be able to unlock that hidden gem behind that behind the power plant of that French stalwart this evening.
It certainly can. Of course, we are in virtual here today, R Factor 2, the platform, and we are going to be really up with you right now with some amazing action. If you haven't had the chance to already, you're joining us for the first time, or this is one that you've seen us many more times before, but you want a little bit more action, you can always like, you can always share, and you can always subscribe for more amazing content brought to you by World Pro Racing. And if you want to be a part of World Pro Racing events, if you find yourself a sim racer, new or old, you can find yourself over to worldproracing.com/event, and you can get yourself all of the action available there and check out some amazing series which are coming up over the course of what we have moving forward. But this is going to be a form setter. This is going to be a very interesting race that we find ourselves in, Alex, because we are looking towards what will be qualifying coming up in the next few moments, and then, of course, that all-important race. But these drivers need to set their form with each other. Brand new championship means that they don't quite know where they're going to stack up compared to everyone else.
Yes, Jake, I completely agree. It was very much like the World Pro Racing USF 2000 Series Championship that we had with myself and Chris Buxton on that. Obviously, one of the biggest things here is it's about driver skill here, Jake. You know, now that we've got a vehicle that is going to be used by everybody, so everyone's in the same boat. However, there's a little bit of a twist here for the Alpine GT4 Championship. The top 3 after each round will have success ballast going on to the next round. The next round in a week's time at the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve at Portimao in Portugal. That's one of my favourite tracks, and it looks like we're getting underway with qualification, which will be just around about 15 minutes, but track temperature already nearly at 30 degrees. So not only have they got to contend with the handling characteristics of the car, Jake, they've also got to worry about tyre degradation, not in qualifying, but in the 30-minute race that precedes this session.
Absolutely, I would say we're in ideal conditions. There is the championship schedule for you. Portimao round 2, Adelaide for round number 3 overall before Silverstone and Road America makes up this championship, and a very important one, 5 straight weeks back to back that we find ourselves with in terms of our racing, and that is a reset back to the pits then at this point in time. So Alessio Spinelli at this point looking good. We've got, of course, a few minutes of practice, 15 minutes of those at this point in time. And this is a track which had a lot of changes. Spinelli actually just pulling it off the road then as we go through. Let's look at Pedro Crulas Gomez then for the moment and understand just how hilly this track is. This is known as the mine shaft section of the circuit because you take this descent down almost like you're traveling down a mine shaft. You've got this very big committed left-hander, which is wrong for Pedro Crulas there going through, and then finally this very tough Crocodile's Corner, which really is off camber and difficult to try and carry as much pace as you can.
Yeah, also going through Cheetah, one of the biggest talking points there coming out of the Crocodiles, Jake, is that if you hit that sausage curb on the inside of that right-hander, you can actually basically put the car 2 wheels into the air and unsettle the balance of the vehicle, which could actually cause you problems, especially during a racing situation. But obviously with free practice, 15 minutes of it, tonight's going to be a 15-minute free practice session. I understand that for next week it's going to be a 5-lap private qualifying session per competitor, but still with 12 Alpines on the grid here for tonight, I think we're going to be in for one hell of a show.
I think we are as well, and this is going to be all about making sure that show shows service at this point. Looking at Casey Lagarde for the Matrix Motorsports team there, the number 69 car out there on circuit, taking a very, I would say, aggressive line, going up into Leibkoff corner and through the long left-hander. Always want to put the power down as early as you possibly can, but a very difficult point in time to try and make that a reality as you descend back down the hill through Mineshaft. And one thing that we have been keeping at least an eye out on here around this circuit is all about balance. This is a balanced circuit which really does showcase just how difficult this is. Of course, you've got that run up the Juxke Suite, you've got that run through the middle sector, which is all about that in-car grip and handling. And when you've got an Alpine here around this place, this is a car which, by all intents and purposes, having the Alpine A110 on the badge, has all the elements of legacy that surrounds it, going all the way back to the 1950s and 60s, and of course the wonderful results that were concocted for the rally championships.
Yeah, Alpine steeped in tradition with rallying, but you know, very much making its presence not just in sports cars with this plucky little GT4, which I've known a couple of drivers that have actually raced this car in real life, and they say it is a bit of a handful, especially when you're trying to go toe-to-toe with something like, say, an Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT4. But when it's in the twisty stuff, that's where the car comes alive. Of course, Alpine now back in Formula 1 with Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon. So the legacy of Alpine still runs through. I mean, as we're with Samuel Razul, what coming out of Loicott and going down the mine shaft reminds me of, Jake, is another circuit. However, it's not in South Africa, it's in New South Wales, Mount Panorama, where you come out of Forest Elbow and then go down the Conrod Straight. So there's a very much a sort of like it's sort of like it's got its own twin down in Australasia, but it's still, as you can see, that Samuel Razul absolutely hurling it through Cheetah before going into the right hand of the last of the corners here. Ingwe, but it just goes to show that when this car's on the ragged edge, it might look a bit scruffy, but boy, is it flying.
Absolutely, it does fly, and that's a good time to move up to 8th position. It's a 1:50.3 out there on the books. It is 3.2 seconds down in terms of that lap, but it just shows you just how committed you need to be around this circuit and how you need to hit every single junction point, every single apex as much as you possibly can. But it's not just the fact that Alpine are making their strides when it comes to the real world and jumping into Formula 1. You can also talk about this as we see a yellow in Sector 1 for a spinner. We also have the likes of the esports team which has come in, and that has itself a fantastic legacy, picking up a bit of help from Richard Arnaud, who has been one legendary team boss over at Race Clutch.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that esports very much front and centre. I mean, having come into esports as a commentator just over a year ago now, it's really strange that I'm saying that. I really have a real penchant and a bit of a passion now for esports, as we see Alex Trehorn in the number 15, currently just over 1.35 seconds of Alessio Spinelli in the number 67. You know, it's really nice to see how these cars, it doesn't matter whether it's in real life or whether it's on esports here, Jake, they look absolutely fantastic, right down to the last pixel.
Absolutely they are, and this is where you get that commitment. Crowthorne corner over towards turn number 2. There is a small kink on the brilliant straight, which is the greatest name for a straight probably in the world out there, and now up the rise through turn number 4 there, the barbecue bend. Of course, the national pits there on the left hand side. We're running the Grand Prix layouts of this track out there here today, but the charge then goes towards turn 5 and the sunset corner. And this is one of the unique things about this circuit, is that it has kept this second sector as a part of the legacy of the old Kyalami, which was run all the way up to about 1982. And that legacy of where you actually went and did the track in reverse from Leerkopf all the way down to that barbecue bend, you find that this is a place where, as Krulash Gomez goes into second position, you find that this is one of the places where it does still hold on to that legacy, and many a different characteristic has come in, because this is effectively feeling like it's a brand new track when it's got that old legacy attached to it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's now actually owned by Porsche South Africa, Toby Venter, one of the directors of Porsche South Africa, now actually owns it. And this track has been around, you know, it's just celebrated. As of this year, its 50th anniversary. Actually opened on the 4th of November 1961, and it's just over 2.8 miles. But what are 2.8 miles? You know, you say about legacy, there is so much that has come out of the Gauteng province, which is where this track is based. You know, it hosted Formula 1 for pretty much 20 different South African Grand Prix until 1993, but it's got a new lease of life, courtesy of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, which over the last couple of years has hosted the Kyalami 9 Hours. So it's not just Formula 1 that has graced South Africa, it's also GT racing. You've also got a whole host of drivers coming out of South Africa, the likes of Jordan Pepper, Kelvin van der Linde, Dave Perel, and also Kelvin's younger brother Sheldon, who for the last couple of years has been racing in DTM. So there's a lot of pedigree that has come out of here. And also Jody Scheckter, ex-F1 Formula 1 world champion with Scuderia Ferrari, no less.
Absolutely, and just to touch on Kelvin van der Linde as well, he is someone who is very much in tune with the esports scene. He drives with arguably one of the greatest sim racing outfits that have ever existed in the form of Team Redline, and they've had such legendary drivers as Rudy van Buren, Gregor Hutu, a 5-time iRacing champion. Bonner House has been in that mix, Atse Kirkov, Alexei Usiakala, Olli Pakala. You can keep going down the list. It's pretty much marquee on any platform, Team Redline, and they've even had likes of Lando Norris and Max Verstappen driving for them, so it tells you just how legacy-defining that team is. But we're about 3 minutes away from the start of qualifying coming in, the end of this practice session right now. And Alessio Spinelli put a very good time in earlier on in the session to put himself up at the very top, and it'll be a quite interesting battle that we see out there here today, as Spinelli does take that decision to dive down into the pits. But everyone's just going to be on their focus here today, making sure that they find the times that they need as we go into a driver's eye perspective of this middle sector with Alex Goncalves then on circuit, going through the right-hander there of the Sunset Bend and trying to get all the power down. And very similar to another Sunset Bend over at Sebring there, that turn 5 is very, very difficult to get correct.
Yeah, very much the case. Now we're going to see the capability of the Alpine as now Alex Goncalves goes through the right-hander of the S's, and now this is where the car might appear to struggle a little bit, but then as soon as you go into the braking zone, down from 5th into what was 2nd gear, maybe even first going through into Loikop, and now you put the power down, but it carries the momentum through the corner, and he's already pushing over 180 kilometers an hour before the sweeping left, and this is where you've got to have full commitment, and he's not lifted. He's up to 6, up to 210 kph, now hard on the brakes, down into the right-hander at the Crocodiles, a little bit of snap-on understeer there. Even though this is rear-wheel drive, you've got to make sure that you nail those apexes correctly. Very neat through Cheetah, and then down into the left-hander here at Ingwe. You know, Alex Goncalves was not hanging, he was definitely not hanging about, he was definitely flying. He's dropped down to 3rd, but let's see if he does improve in this session with a minute and a half to go. Slight improvement, up to just, that was a 1:48.269 from the number 2. And he set a personal best in Sector 3 there as well with the 24.8, just over a tenth off of Alex Trahorn as Stephen Johnson sets the personal best, puts him P10. And it looks like the server is going to be filling up because we've got 15 cars looking to go into battle for our 15-minute qualifying session with 60 seconds left in the free practice.
Absolutely they do, and that work is so important. Some drivers leaving it late then to get themselves into server, feeling that they'd want to do their practice elsewhere potentially as one of the things that they are focusing on, or just the fact that they want to leave things in just as late of a position as they possibly can. So we'll keep an eye out on this as we continue on forward. Russell then over to the line, jumps up to 9th position then, 2.6 seconds off of the pace of Alessio Spinelli up at the front, but definitely a fastest lap for the Atlantic Motorsports team, which have been a very important, I would say, directive here in our Factor 2 as a team which has been predominantly very strong when it has come to their Brazilian contingent.
Yeah, we did see quite a lot of that in the World Pro Racing USF 2000 Series Championship. Darrell Russell was actually one of the drivers in the championship last time out. Didn't go all their way, but they did definitely show that there is plenty more to be shown over, you know, future championships, especially on the R Factor 2 platform. So it's good to have the likes of Darrell Russell back with us here on World Pro Racing.
Absolutely, and of course, practice now has come to an end. There will be a point in time where they now start to move over towards the qualifying effort, which will be coming in next. And Alex, you know, it's going to be a little bit different for them. They would have got a late notification that they don't have 5 private laps. They have 15 minutes to set a time. It's a very different prospect knowing that you've gone from having only 5 laps to now potentially, if you need it, 7 or 8 laps, and as many laps as you need to go out there and really make something happen.
Yeah, very much the case there, Jake. But obviously with the side of things now, the biggest thing that you're going to have to factor in is track position. We see that in qualifying in a lot of different championships, Formula 1, Formula E, GT championships as well. Here's going to be no different at all. It's a very tight circuit, and with 15 cars, 15 Alpines, that's close to over, what, the best part of nearly 4,000 horsepower on that grid. They're going to have to jockey for track position. And if you could get some clean air, or maybe even work together with a teammate, you might be able to get a couple of 2 or 3 tenths maybe to get that additional bit of tow. That might help coming through from Loikop down to Mineshaft and then going through from Ingwe through the kink and into Crowthorne.
It certainly can, and we'll also be seeing that on the opening lap, the long run towards turn 2 at Crowthorne. It's a very, very difficult point to try and get things right. Drivers, though, are out there on circuit. About half of them have decided to make that call to get themselves out on track and make sure that they've got enough of the pace that they need. There is Alex Trahorn. We are with the number 15 out there on circuit, trying to get a good outlap together then through this very committed S's section. You go down the hill and you're trying to fight for that power as the car wants to throw itself into that gravel on the outside, and then you try and really work up towards Leemkoff then, and that's where the old circuit departs And a new circuit begins here as you enter that third sector. But that Leonkov corner as well here, Alex, it's such a difficult corner to get right because you've got an uphill braking zone. But the moment you get over that crest and you start to think about turning, the track actually falls away from you.
Yeah, very much the case. And it also seems to also be a double apex, Jake. So you're not just going in for one corner, you're effectively going in for a double left. And that's where I've seen it before in not just qualifying sessions, but also races, as Alex Strayhorn goes very, very wide. Coming out of Cheetah, fully committed, was the number 15 through there. But he could be the first one to maybe set a benchmark time as Strayhorn comes across to the stripe. That's just an outlap at the moment. So he's now started to fly. But that's going to really unsettle people. If you approach it completely incorrectly, you can fall foul through the first part of it. But if you gather things up and get it right through the second half of Loikop, you're probably going to have a better run going down the mine shaft. But it's one thing. I think one of the old sayings that I normally say is it's time for show, times are for show, points are to go. That's going to be very true this evening. But this is now where everyone needs to have their P's and Q's in order, and just try not to make a mistake, because if you're going to go off track, at least Alex Strayhorn going through Cheetah did that on the out lap, not on a flying lap, because that lap could have very well have been invalidated.
And crucially, with such a tight final corner as Ingwer is, it's going to be one which I'm sure for everyone who's making mistakes out there through their outlap won't make too much of a difference. Strayhorn now making his way out of the middle sector, and of course qualifying doesn't guarantee the race victory, but it does guarantee you the best possible chance of a race victory by starting on the front. We've got some wonderful picture-in-picture as we take a look on these outside perspectives here down the mineshaft corner, and they can see in our picture-in-picture down the hill. We've got that driver's eyes perspective then, using all of the road trying to turn in. It's such a difficult corner as well there, of course, at the Crocodiles, to try and really work out where's the right point to turn in through the Cheetah corner. Of course, it was a reversion. It used to be a chicane actually down there, 92, 93, and now through that final corner, that final left-hander, back stepping out, trying to put the pad on maybe a little bit too early there for Alex Strayhorn. He comes across the line, and that is a great 47.353, but someone is clearly going quicker over those lap times, and it's Alessio Spinelli who moves himself up by a 1/10.5 with a very, very nice final sector.
Yeah, Spinelli lost a little bit of time, but it was only like 1/100th of a second. Casey Lagarde goes up into P5 as Alex Goncalves in the number 2 takes third place. Andy Birch in the number 72, 1 minute 48.643. Personal best in all 3 sectors. But at the moment, looking at the maximum speed, looks like a couple of drivers, João Carapau, there you've also got Casey Lagarde and Alessio Spinelli, have all maxed out at 223 kilometres an hour. Here's Trev Sharp trying to get up from 12th position, currently on his first flying lap attempt with just over 10 minutes to go. And where does the number 21 end up? Goes P8, nice run there, 1 minute 50.191. But at the moment, João Carapau in the number 11 has just put in a 32.6 on the first sector. So, but also interesting, again, we have the returnees. We have Casey and Vance Lagarde, both father and son duo. They ran with us in the USF 2000, and it's father leading son at the moment. Casey in 6th, Vance in 8th, as they've just been split by the number 5 of Samuel Rasoul.
They certainly have, and now the focus is going to be over the course of those opening laps. Well, you set a marker down on the board, and then you try and shuffle off some improvements. There's someone off the road on the run there to Cheetah. That won't be ideal at all, but Casey Lagarde making that charge through will just about be available to get through that. Had a little slow middle sector, 1.1 seconds down on what was needed, and they can see that wiggle trying to get the power down as Ganazzo moves up into 7th position. You got Birch up there as well in 4th position with a good qualifying time, but Lagarde no shades of improvement over that lap, and in fact Carapau has now just moved up on the timing stands to 4th position, so a very good lap time there. Johnson jumping up to 9th. This is Darrell Russell who's now down in 13th position at this stage, making a nice neat drive to the line. It's a relatively medium run to the line in these sorts of machines, but is a 150.250 for him as he looks to try and improve. And there is Pedro Crulas Gomez then jumping himself up into 4th position.
Yeah, Pedro Gomez we've seen as a regular here on World Pro Racing, predominantly on the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform, if memory serves me correctly. But a good showing there from the number 43 as the car behind decides to go a little bit of exit stage right, going through the exit of Crowthorns and hopefully getting a good run going through the Juxkay sweep. But here is Alessio Spinelli in the number 67 coming through. Looks to be the S's, and now the run up the hill going through towards Loikop, and already a 10th down in the first sector. But still, to already have a 10th and a half up after a first flying lap on Alex Trehorn, you've got to factor in Alex Trehorn and Alex Goncalves, I think, could probably be, along with Spinelli here, Jake, the three that could really challenge. I mean, don't count out Pedro Crulas Gomez at this particular moment, because we've got just over half of the session remaining.
We certainly do. You cannot count anybody out at this stage when it comes to racing. We are only in the qualifying session after all, and the focus here on Spinelli as we go down the mine shaft over towards that next sector. So the focus is very much there, and everyone is going to be searching for as much time as possible. You also got that duo, the Vaya Gonzalez's, who will be searching for as much as possible in a little bit of a kick out wide after what was a purple middle sector from Spinelli, as he really tries to get as much grip as possible through that final corner. May have just cost him as he made that charge. Oh no, it didn't. He found 2/10 as he came through, 47 flat. He gives himself a little bit more of a buffer now, over a quarter of a second in terms of time. And there is Vance Lagarde then in the Matrix Motorsports machine up in the first sector. Crulas Gomez moving up then to 3rd overall.
Yeah, brief yellow in Sector 1. Vance is actually the father and Casey is the son, so looks like one's trying to get up, get bragging rights over the other. They've actually stuck with their highlighter theme as they had in the USF 2000 series, actually on their side mirrors. So I'm pleased to see there's a little bit of a bright, outrageous colour, but that's definitely not what you want to do. Vance Lagarde going through the crocodiles. Literally, I think I saw all 4 wheels up in the air, a bit like Flugplatz at the Nordschleife. But Vance Lagarde up again in Sector 2, so could look to improve. Back end steps out. Oh, that was very, very wide coming out of Ingwe, but keeps the car as tight to the right hand side. A 1 minute 48.637 puts Vance Lagarde actually up into 6th position. There's Alex Trehorn just having to back out. Got a bit and look where he was on the first sector. He was up by nearly a 10th and a half. And Spinelli's lap looked to be under threat, but the car in front that had a bit of a moment going through, I think that was going through Clubhouse, that meant that Alex Trehorn had to back out of it.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing for Alex Trehorn in this sort of qualifying session. You really have to try and set up and work out where you are. If someone has a moment, you've got to make sure that you've got it all together. And the worst bit about that as well, really, Alex, is the fact that he's taken that life out of the tyres with that fastest first sector. He'll now have to regather that back up, watch the tyre temperatures, watch everything as he goes around, and he's got to try and match or even do better than that over his next run moving forward. So for Alex Trehorn, you know, it gets a little bit more difficult the longer that these sorts of sessions go on. You don't have much time to reset and get another fresh set of boots. You've got 5 minutes left here in qualifying as Goncalves moves up then into 3rd by half a 10.
Yeah, Alex Trehorn's now got 2 flying lap attempts, basing it on his best effort so far, a 1 minute 47.7. So you can see that literally he backed out of it big time, and he could have been on course for a really, really good run and a challenge at Alessio Spinelli as Francisco Valle Gomez cuts across the front of the pit lane as Pedro Crulas Gomez comes out of the pit lane. The number 43 currently in 4th position. Sami Rasul now starts another flying lap, having gone across the start-finish line and down into the kink, the right-hander, before slamming on the anchors tight into Crowthorne. As now we go on board with the number 5 through the right of the Juxkay sweep, up the gears, 4th gear, 150 kph, down into 3rd through Barbecue, and then it's the run up into Sunset And one of the things that they'll have to do to fully commit to Sunset, because you're lifting off a little bit, but you're going to turn in the car, lift off the throttle down to fourth, touch the apex very, very slightly, allow the car to go over to the left-hand side, now through into the S's. Now this is where you have to have that full commitment. And up into fourth now, down through into the right-hander, the left-hander, which brings you down the hill, and then it starts to climb again, going through the right-hander here on the approach through to Loikop, using as much of the rev limiter on this 1.8 litre inline 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, pushing out nearly 250 brake horsepower. The car itself without driver weighs about 1,100 kilos. As now the roller coaster ride happens to start going through mineshaft, through the left-hand sweeper before the hefty braking zone into the right-hander at the Crocodiles, all the way down into second. Tight apex taken by Samuel Rasool. Both, it might have looked like a clean lap from his perspective, but it's not. And he's decided to abort that lap. So 2.4 seconds after 2 sectors, I think Samuel Rasool decided to call it a day. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Spinelli, Goncalves, Krulas Gomez, you know, how they perform, because we've only got 2.5 minutes of the session left, Jake.
Yeah, we certainly do, and that's not long at all when it comes to working like this, because they know they've got one more lap. You've got to put it on the table. It's a now or never moment. Top 8 split by 1.7 seconds out there in qualifying, and look at how close it is as well for 9th, 10th, and 11th. Just 2 hundredths, nearly 3 hundredths of a second, splitting those drivers up, so they're going to have to really work for those final laps. Only 2 drivers right now not out there on circuit, as they'll be looking to try and make sure their times will work out. So for the moment, Spinelli not entirely safe at this stage.
I don't think so. If Trehorn's got a good run, because he's now on an out lap, Trehorn could be the danger driver this evening. But Goncalves, Krulas Gomez, even Andy Birch in 5th place, you know, they're covered by just over 1.1 seconds. 90 seconds isn't long, but we have seen close qualifying sessions before. Yellow out in Sector 2, so Spinelli, I think, has got to bring a little bit more to the party here in Quali.
I think he does as well. We're down to 1 minute 17 seconds. There is Pedro Krulas Gomez, purple in the first sector, little bit wide there through the Crocodiles. He is absolutely giving everything here, looking for this time with about a minute to go. We'll crucially have one more lap on the table if this one doesn't work out. Has a little wiggle going through the final corner, making that drive to the line. 47 flat, the marker. That's still a great 47.2 there. That's good enough right now for second position.
Yeah, very good effort there. And just under a quarter of a second off. Alex Trehorn up by 1/10.5. He's quicker than on his original hot lap that needed to be aborted. So Alex Trehorn looking for a good run here. Through Clubhouse goes the Alpine. Now down into the S's. I'm going to be keeping my eagle eyes on Alex Trehorn, because there's a little bit of smoke coming out off of the, or was that dust coming off of the tyres, as he literally rampaged his way through the apex, going through the S's. Yeah, it's looking good here for Trehorn. I think Spinelli's got very, very good reason to be worried.
I think he does, and that's why he's out there on a flying lap, qualifying soon about to come to a close. So Trehorn will be one of the first drivers who will reach the checkered flag, and he will only be able to wait once he crosses second sector. He's actually down by 1/10 now as he goes through, and he's pushed incredibly wide through the Crocodiles, trying to get as much speed carried through the corner as possible. Is there a way to gather it back in terms of this lap? With the checkered flag out, he's got to keep himself in the margin as well. He knows that Krulas Gomez is up there in second position right now. So Alex Trehorn making the charge to the line. 47 flat is still the time to beat, and it all fell away in the final 2 sectors as he was trying to push for it. Spinelli, though, has a fantastic first sector of his own, up nearly 2/10 right now. He doesn't know how much of a margin he's got. He will know that the work that Trehorn's done is not good enough, but as he hits the brakes into the Crocodiles corner, he's up by 2/10 of a second now. He's absolutely flying at this moment in time, and he knows he needs to, because he was a little bit worried about that gap from Krulas Gomez, who's actually just gone quickest by 17 thousandths of a second, a 1:47.051, but now now it's about Spinelli making that drive to the line. It was a little bit scruffy there in that final sector. Kicked up a bit of gravel and dust as he goes for it. What a time, though. 46.5. He was purple in all 3 sectors to be cleared by nearly half a second. Birch, meanwhile, will cross the line. He'll be in 5th position. There is Giuseppe Nazzo there, who is looking to try and improve his 7/10 of a second down. That's a 48.4 as he crosses the line, which is good enough up for P6. And there is Francisco Valle Gonzalez then making that drive towards the line, green in both of his sectors. A yellow there, you could say, final sector, so remains then in P13 as Trev Sharp takes the very narrow line towards the pit wall. His time not able to improve either. So Alessio Spinelli is the fastest of them all, with Pedro Crulash Gomez in 2nd and Alex Trehorn there in 3rd. Alex Goncalves then starts from 4th with Andy Birch 5th. Giuseppe Nazzo then in 6th position with João Carapau in 7th position. Then it's Vance Lagarde who beats out Dad Casey there into what is 8th position, 8th and 9th. And then, that's Dad beating out Son, and then you got Samuel Rasool rounding out the top 10, 2.5 seconds back on a 149.1. But that is an important qualifying session there, Alex, and crucially, what we need to talk about is just how much of a mission statement that last lap was from Spinelli.
He had something in the bag. It was just a case of waiting to see how Alex Trehorn would respond. And then Spinelli just went, he did the old hold my beer statement right there and then. He had another five or so tenths in that car. He was nearly 2 tenths up in Sector 1, increased that by a further 2 tenths. He was literally on a rampage and just showed how much there was left in that car in quali. But now it's a completely different kettle of fish with the 30-minute race here at Kyalami.
Exactly, and that race is going to be very important, especially when you realise about track position early on. It's a long run towards turn number 1, and if you can get that run down into Crowthorne at 2, is this maybe what you would say, Alex, as an opportunity for certain drivers to go out there, be aggressive turn 1, turn 2, gain those places early and then not have to spend the rest of the race worrying about how do you make an overtake on what is a difficult track at the best of times to get around someone?
Yeah, sometimes it has to have that controlled aggression, Jake. Not necessarily sending it up the inside through Crowthorne. So if you get the proper approach, then have at it, is what I'd say. But it's always dependent on strategy. This is a 30-minute sprint race. If you take too much life out of those tyres early on, you could find yourself dropping down the order in the second half of the race. And with the track temperatures still at nearly 30 degrees Celsius, the degradation, the tyre pressures, you hit a curb wrong, it can send you spinning. So not necessarily being aggressive straight out of the blocks is always the best answer. Sometimes it's always about getting through the first turn and the first lap and then see how your strategy works out from there.
Absolutely, and how are these drivers going to figure themselves out? Well, the only place you can find it is with us here at World Pro Racing. If you haven't had the chance already, you can like, you can share, and you can subscribe. We're going to step aside, though, for just one moment here right now. We'll be back with more and the race after this. welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Alpine GT4 Championship here with World Pro Racing, live to you from the virtual Kyalami circuit then in South Africa. The first round of five straight weeks coming along for you. Jake Sperry, Alex Goldschmidt here to call all of the action here today. And Alex, we're just about getting ourselves ready to look towards that race which will be coming up. And there will be a lot of nerves and anticipation off of the start because it has one of those feels of a very difficult start. It's a long run towards a heavy braking zone, and as we know, there are often a lot of dramas when you get a long run to a heavy braking zone. Monza is a prime example.
Yeah, it's about getting the absolute premier amount of traction, no wheel spin, make sure that the revs are at the right point before you drop it into drop the hammer, lift off, the brake. Because the thing is that if you don't get the good run of traction, especially going down a downhill slant, going through the kink and going through into Crowthorne, we could see a 3-wide moment. I don't think it'll be at the front. I mean, Spinelli's got that car absolutely hooked up. We saw it in qualifying by just over 4.5 tenths after a 15-minute qualifying session. I think the likes of Trehorn, Pedro Crulas Gomez, they've got their work cut out for them. But if they play it smart, if Spinelli starts going off into the distance, who knows what might happen. But it's a 30-minute race. It's not going to be settled in the first 60 seconds. I think we could probably have a bit of a rocket ship start, but it looks like we're about to get things underway here.
Absolutely, we are here, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, AMD, the fastest in the game. Then, as we go along for the start that we have moving forward, everyone sorting themselves out then onto the grid and getting themselves ready for the action that we have available then as they take their outlap as they go around this circuit. And this will be a very important point in time for them to make sure they get all the temperatures that they need up into the tyres, all of that understanding and availability then in on the books, as we will be looking for these important battles and the stories to be told over the course of these 30 minutes. Now, this is effectively reconnaissance for them as they go around. Well, how's the car reacting? Do I feel like everything's okay? Are my marker points all going to be in check as I mentally count off these corners? And how quick do you want to go on this formation lap to keep, I would say, warmth in the tyres, but not wear?
Yeah, also, you've got to make sure the pressures are up to standard. Also the brake temperature, because effectively when you're braking, you're not only just putting heat into the brakes, you're also putting it into the carcass of the tyre through the alloy wheel on each corner of these cars. You know, the engine's got to be on full song, up to temperature in its own right. So everything's, you've got to cross every T, dot every I before you go into battle. You've got to make sure, I think as the legend that is Mr. Le Mans, Tom Christensen, said, you want to have your weapons sharp, and that's what they need tonight. They need to be on point.
They absolutely need to, as they will make their charge towards the Leibkoff corner here of turn number 10 out on track, and they figure it as they go down the hill. The double apex left, the mine shaft coming along straight afterwards. This is the commitment point of the lap. All these drivers looking to get themselves ready as they focus now. Final sector comes along, and now what do you have available in the back pocket? How aggressive are you going to be able to be then here today, and what is the focus going to be as they go through? Of course, you can catch yourself with some amazing action, not just on the PC in terms of a platform, but on PlayStation 4 as well, because you can join us with the World Pro Racing community heading over to worldproracing.com. You can also follow us on social media as well to get yourself up to date with all of the championships going on. Tomorrow we will have some GT4 action on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and then of course on Friday the third season of the Sprint Championship for ACC. But now it's all about that focus. It's a standing start, so they have done their pace lap around the circuit. They will wait for the final drivers to set themselves up onto the grid, and of course with a smaller field, it's not the longest wait in the world that they will have as we get ourselves ready. Just one of the Valle Gonzalez brothers then to take that grid stall and work out everything as we get ourselves into position and ready. It's 30 minutes, it's 15 drivers, it's Kyalami, it's the start of a brand new season. And here with World Pro Racing, we welcome you to the conversation. Let's get ourselves then ready for the lights here around this wonderful Kyalami circuit, because our action is going to be taking place then in about 5 seconds time here, ladies and gentlemen. Lights on here, so are the klaxons. Let's get going here at this wonderful, wonderful circuit. What a great start there by one of those brilliant drives there as they go through. That was going to be one of the Lagarde drivers then making that good drive through as they get that nice run. Spinelli's beaten here on the run to turn 1 by Krulash Gomez, who immediately covers the line down there at turn 2 Crowthorne. There was a little bit of work trying to cover around the outside, contact in the middle, and Johnson there is going to go around, and he's going to find the Armco there down on the inside.
Yeah, Pedro Crulash Gomez got the jump. Trehorn was looking towards the outside, going through Crowthorns on Alessio Spinelli, who literally got jumped. He got a good getaway, but Crulash Gomez had an even better one. As you've got there, Vance Lagarde. This is going through into sunset. Not easy to try and keep that car carried through with momentum before the next left-hander at Clubhouse. Samuel Rasoul has a little bit of a touch with the car just in front. That looks to be Casey Lagarde, and João Carapau is battling away with Steve Johnson and nearly going side by side into the S's, but Johnson shuts the door.
Certainly does, so not the best start in the world. Spinelli then in second. He's got Trehorn and Goncalves then for a bit of company as they enter for the first time into the Leibkoff corner, and down the mine shaft they go. Now look at that, Casey Lagarde looking like he's got one move done, and suddenly he's got to look behind him, because look at how feisty Gnazzo and Rasoul are side by side through the big long left-hander, as they will now look to the Crocodiles. It is going to be Rasoul on the inside, it looks like. No, he's on the outside, and he's actually going to lose a position. They're 3 wide on the exit. That's going to end in drama. Surely it's piff-paff ping-pong as they go up towards Cheetah Corner, and somehow Rasoul is okay. How on earth are they still pointing in the same direction?
I hate to think, because Trev Sharp could have been catapulted in the Armco on the right-hand side in the approach to Cheetah, but luckily enough, the 21 got away with it. Samuel Rasoul, in the meantime, is just behind Giuseppe Gnazzo, and has got the number 11 of Francisco Valle Gonzalez. Alex Trehorn, at the moment, has also closed up with Alessio Spinelli, and coming with them is Alex Goncalves. So this battle for the top 4 really closing up, and here is a replay of the start going through into Crowthorns. There's Casey Lagarde. He has a bit of a ping-pong moment of himself, and then right front with left rear, and the 85 of Steve Johnson ends up in the Armco just before the Jux K sweep. So I'm wondering whether our race control might be taking a little bit of a look at that one, but the jury is out with them. We're just calling the action here in the virtual commentary box.
We absolutely are, and it's such an awkward position there for Casey Lagarde in that opening lap, because he took contact coming into turn 1, which would have absolutely spooked him, as Trehorn now sees Goncalves behind, try and make that progress through, and not going to have any of it, trying to cut back on the inside. That's a great effort there from Goncalves, trying to get it done on effectively his teammate there in Alex Trehorn, both part of the Dad's Racing team out there at the moment, and they will both hit the brakes and go into that next right-hander, and no dice there. It looks like Lagarde behind has got the move done on Birch, has moved up into 5th position as well in the meanwhile, but Alex Goncalves definitely proving, at least in the early stages, there is a need to be aggressive. The front 4 have broken away to the tune of 3 seconds in the opening 2 laps.
Yeah, good showing by Vance Lagarde at the moment, because he started in 8th position. He's now up into P5. Pedro Crulash Gomez, who now leads by just the best part of a second, sets the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 47.948, was fastest in Sector 3, but Alex Trehorn, Sector 2, Alex Trehorn was quickest in Sector 1, and Alessio Spinelli quickest in Sector 3, as there is, I think that's Carapau up the inside of Sharp, as that's going through into Crowthorns. Luckily enough, they get through, but then looks like Sharp and Johnson at each other's doors, trying to go through the Jux K sweep. The pair managed to make it through, and still, after just under 4.5 minutes of racing, Jake, all 15 competitors still racing around the circuit here.
Yeah, and that is something which is quite positive. I'm not sure how much damage Johnson has. There is Andy Birch in the Rhineland Birch racing car starting to fall backwards a little bit. He's seen one of the Lagardes make a way through. Now it's the other who wants to get through, and that is Casey behind, who will definitely be keeping an eye out on, can I get that position A, S, A, and P? And the answer to the moment is going to be no, because there is just enough of a gap at the moment, about half a second's worth between them as they go through here at Leibkoff and now start to make that charge back down the hill once again. A drive-through penalty comes in then for that driver in 7th position, so that will be Casey Lagarde, who will have to take a little trip down the lane that we're just hearing from the stewards. He's going to take a dive down the pits. He's also going to be very aggressive there, trying to slow the car down, so he'll have to just sit in behind then as he works out everything, and surely, very soon, he'll be taking that little flick left, but not on this lap, he'll do it on the next one.
Yeah, and that will be a very, very slow trundle down the pit lane as Alessio Spinelli now sets the fastest lap at 1 minute 47.828. He's got the gap down to just over 0.7 of a second on Pedro Culas Gomez. So the good thing is that our pole sitter has unlocked a little bit of pace. He was faster by just over 0.2 in Sector 2 in comparison with Pedro Culas Gomez. And there is Francisco Valle Gonzalez battling away, and you can just see that it's great to have great action, and that's one of the things I love about a single make championship here, Jake, is that it is about the driver's skill, and it's about how they rise to the conditions. At the moment, Curas Gomez, Spinelli, Trehorn, Goncalves, Birch, they're really the ones that are shining more than anybody, but everyone else is still having their own battles. And what's more, we've also had, now I've just seen a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Both Vance and Casey Lagarde have just DNF'd, which means they won't be scoring points this evening. I'm wondering what happened there.
I would assume, with both of those drivers out, that someone has accidentally shorted the circuit at the Lagarde house.
Yeah. Well, they probably pulled out the Ethernet cable from the sim rig.
Something along those lines has definitely not worked out then for both of them. They are both out at the same time, which is a real shame. But there is Alessio Spinelli, who's been working hard to close down that gap to Pedro Culas Gomez out in front, and crucially has built a little bit of a margin here to Trehorn and Goncalves, who will be in their own battle here for what is going to be 3rd and 4th. So Culas Gomez then will be on the defense at this point in time, and it's a long way to home right now. We are still 22 minutes and 35 seconds away from the end of this race, and of course they finish the lap that they start on when they go through. So in towards turn 2, nice little battle there, picture in picture right now between Sharp and Johnson as they go at it for the final spot inside then of the top 10, and it looks like no dice, it seems, at the moment there for Johnson, who looks like he may be a little bit down in terms of a straight line. And now what do you do if you're Culas Gomez? He's trying to look every which way to make his Alpine the widest Alpine in all of the action. Goncalves behind is down the inside, and I think through on Alex Trehorn. He is now up into 3rd position, but look at Spinelli, he's all over the place trying to get through on Culas Gomez.
Last 2 laps, he was actually 0.3 of a second quicker than Culas Gomez, and now they're coming up to back marker traffic. So this could be the opportunity that Alessio Spinelli needs in order to get past. And last time around, he was actually quick. It was the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 47.828. They're now going through into the deep braking zone into Loikop, and now this is going to give Spinelli the run of momentum that he needs. And what he's doing is allowing that car to drift to the right hand side a little bit more than Culas Gomez to carry the momentum down and gain a couple of maybe 5-10 kilometers an hour in terms of speed. And he's going to put it round the outside of Culas Gomez through the Crocodiles. That was never going to work on a month of Sundays, but now they've got the run down to Cheetah. Culas Gomez will have the inside line. Spinelli still keeps it planted. Now Ingwe. Oh, Pedro Culas Gomez has just had the biggest South African wake-up call, courtesy of Alessio Spinelli. That was brilliant respect from both drivers there. And now you've got Goncalves versus Trehorn.
We absolutely do, and this is going to be the key here. So Goncalves in a little bit of trouble. He ran wide down there at the Crocodiles, which is a very inviting corner to go out there and attack with. As on the brakes they go into the next left of to Crowthorne, and that is Trehorn getting it done back down the inside. So a nice move there, as there is a very good change for position. But you also have to say that outside line, it does work there, and wake-up call is one thing. They're not necessarily running or worrying about traffic. Vi Gonzalez, oh, look at that, Spinelli all the way to the inside trying to go through. You're not going to shepherd yourself away through that way as they look to charge. Spinelli's going to run out wide there through the Sunset Bend, and just like that, they are racing this one right now here, Alex. Like, this is the last lap of the race, but we're only 1/3 of the way through right now.
Yeah, Goncalves was bringing out the old rally style in his Alpine, going through into Clubhouse Bend there, but Krulas Gomez doing a really good job. He's soaking up the pressure like a sponge, and he's not bringing, he's not putting all his cards out on the table like it was a poker game. But here, Spinelli's just really unlocking that pace, and through the second part of Loicop, they come down the roller coaster right through Mineshaft, and Spinelli's got the run once again. Now, we saw it on the previous time. He's going for the same move. Now, they say once bitten, twice shy. Oh, he goes again for the move to Spinelli. But this time, Krules Gomez was wise to it, knew it was going to happen, stayed tight on the inside line, and Spinelli lost a handful of momentum right there and then.
If he keeps using that outside line, surely there will come a time where Krulas Gomez is always going to try and shepherd him out of road there on the outside. That'll be something that's going to be worth keeping in mind. A change of position lower down as Johnson and Sharp have exchanged their pleasantries, and they've exchanged their pleasantries back on the timing tower that we have at the moment. There is Trehorn in third position, trying everything to stay pretty much with it, and despite all the heavy battling that is going up in front, they're not necessarily doing enough to close that gap down. A little wide there went Spinelli at turn one. That's going to mean that he drops back to about 0.8 of a second. Now here's Trev Sharp in a little bit of a battle. Johnson has been looking every single time for a chance to make the move down in towards turn number one, but it looks like with that hit that he had in the early stages, he might be a little bit down in terms of a straight line speed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is based on a road-going vehicle, but there is still some aerodynamic properties. But with the damage that Johnson sustained after that tag with Casey Lagarde on lap 1, that is a bit of a wounded vehicle. So Steve Johnson is going to do his absolute utmost. And what's more, he's keeping pace with Trev Sharp. So hats off to Steve Johnson in the 85.
Absolutely, he's working hard at this stage, he is, to try and close down that door as he looks to try and make that push forward and make sure that it's all going to play out the way that they need to here down the hill through the clubhouse corners, and trying to work that way back up the hill and looking for every option after those S's. It's going to be a case of where can you construct the move. We've seen opportunities. Lebkov is a tough place to get it done, but now we're starting to see that setup through that very narrow line as you go through. Yes, you'll compromise yourself slightly on the exit here, Alex, but what we're seeing here is opportunity, and it's all about that opportunity right now with the attack down the hill, and where do you go and make the move? Pivot to the inside there once again for Johnson, but he's not going to get there because he was just not able to send the car up the inside.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, there's people like Spinelli that will throw it to the outside and chance their luck, but Johnson's doing the old school side of things, and now you can see that Sharp loses a little bit of time coming out of Ingwe, and Johnson nearly had a bit of a ping-pong moment right there, but slots in behind Sharp as they go down towards the kink and then down towards Crowthorne. You know, they're doing some really good racing. It's nice, clean, it's not too argy-bargy. As Johnson could have had an opportunity there. Well, he does nearly get an opportunity courtesy of Trev Sharp, who had a bit of a back-end step out towards the right-hand side going through Crowthorne, but through the Jux K sweep, Trev Sharp's still able to keep it in front, and you can see that you've got the number 11 of Francisco Valle Gonzalez just up ahead. There's a yellow out in Sector 1 at the circuit, so there were a couple of cars that were battling away just up ahead of Valle Gonzalez, but you know, fair play to Sharp and Johnson. They've kept it on the black stuff.
They have. It looks like Russell's the driver in a world of trouble right now. That's why we've got the yellow flags out there at the moment. Gap is starting to crawl its way back in. The likes of Krulash Gomez versus Spinelli's there. Sharp still having to be very cautious about this battle at the moment going on. So let's see what the focus is on the brakes. Round the outside of Leibkov is always going to be a tough move. Try and construct, but you've gone a little bit too wide there, Trev. Door open there for Johnson, and let's have a bit of contact, why don't we, as we descend down the hill towards this the Crocodile's corner coming up. They've gone through Mine Shaft. Great run there by Sharp down the hill. He was able to cover it off initially, but on the outside, that is a great block pass to make that move happen.
Yeah, it was quite funny, though, that the door got opened and then it was slammed shut by door panel banging. That just goes to show how close quarter it is here as we are about to hit the halfway point. But I've been noticing that the gap between Pedro Krulas Gomez has just been decimated by Alessio Spinelli on the previous lap by 6/10. We've got one car. I think that was on the inside of Crowthorns there at a standstill, unfortunately. That looks to be Darrell Russell.
Yeah, it certainly does, and we've been keeping an eye on that as it's been happening for a little while. So this is what happened to the Atlantic Motorsports driver going through the final corner. Back end steps out, he's okay, but I think it's that run towards 2 where all of the dramas come in. This happened just behind, and that feels like it's a technical failure of some kind. It looks like the steering wheel has decided to not be a steering wheel anymore.
Yeah, or it could be a software issue as well, which can cause that. But here we go back to the lead as Pedro Krulas Gomez still ahead of Spinelli by just over 6/10. Sammy Russell, in the meantime, has had a really good race so far. Started down in 10th position, now battling away with Carapau and Grazzo, and this is for 6th on the road. So Russell doing a fairly stand-about job at the minute, but not hanging about either.
The Mentalism driver's really trying to push here at this stage. We're in that halfway stage of the race, and now if you do have something, you go for it, and they are going for it at the front here. They've built up a buffer margin now of about 2.5 seconds back from Spinelli Trehorn, so that's going to be one of the focuses that they've got. Russell has been classified now as a non-finisher. We're down to 12 drivers here at Kyalami, on the brakes once more, in towards turn 2. And Pedro Krulas Gomez, well, it's been the story of the race so far. It's been all about keeping yourself in play. Use the hashtags WPR and World Pro Racing. Let your friends know just how amazing this racing is at this moment in time, with Pedro Krulas Gomez once again looking in the mirrors. And one of the worst things you can find yourself in a position with, Alex, when you're driving, is to become a quote-unquote rear-view mirror driver, as he does push a bit wide. But look at that, Spinelli's gone a bit wider there as he finds the grass, and he can't quite gather it back up again. Even if he did make that move, there'll be a few questions about it. Rasul having to defend.
I think Alessio Spinelli channeled his inner Jean Ragnotti right there and then, using the Alpine skills. Just heard from our broadcast team that, it was a server disconnect for both Casey and Vance Lagarde, unfortunately. But again, Spinelli closing on Pedro Krulas Gomez. We've got just under 12.5 minutes to go. And to be honest with you here, Jake, I thought it'd be quite, if we saw that Spinelli was caught out on the back foot, well, that's definitely what Krulas Gomez did, but Spinelli's looking to charge back. But don't count how Alex Trehorn or Alex Goncalves as going through the right hand and through the Crocodiles. Spinelli right up the back bumper of Krulas Gomez through Cheetah. Nice and tidy from the pair of them. I think Spinelli is probably just winding up and waiting to see if he can get the inside run coming out of the final corner. Krulas Gomez goes wide, and this is the run down to Crowthorne. Could Spinelli take the lead back on lap number 11?
That looks like it could be the case. He was in 5 minds going into the final corner, which way he'd go, and he's forced the error here out to Krulas Gomez. He's got the inside line. He's trying to sort it out. Krulas Gomez trying to hold it around the outside. A little bit of argy-bargy between them, and just like that, it is Alessio Spinelli into the race lead. He had the race lead for about 50 metres or so, and this is the first time since then that he's done it. Now Krulas Gomez has got to channel his inner Valentino Rossi, as we see picture-in-picture João Carapau trying to get himself back through against Rasul. He's not going to be able to get that done yet, but really it's got to be a case of you've got to strike now while the iron's hot, otherwise the iron will cool and you've got no chance now. They've allowed Trehorn right back into the fight.
Yeah, Trehorn's about 7/10 or so behind. As Krulas Gomes, again, this is going through now into the S's. This is going to be a very crucial time. We've got just over 10 3/4 minutes left to go, and Trehorn is closing. And I'm just looking at the sector time. So it was 33-1 for Spinelli. That was definitely a lunge. Oh, and a touch between them going through Loikop. This is going to give Trehorn the opportunity he needs, because he did a 32-3 and was a second quicker than Krulas Gomes, mainly because of the fact that he and Krulas Gomes and Spinelli were battling, and now Trehorn has got the he's got the bullseye well and truly in his crosshairs. Now, when is the moment that he's going to pull the arrow back and launch it to hit a perfect 10?
That was a very important moment in the context of that race, because Krulas Gomes went to fire for it, as we also see picture in picture here, a very big battle there from Carapo, who still can't quite get there. 10 minutes remaining then on the clock, and here comes Trehorn looking to move himself up into second position. Gets himself then to the outside, inside through the kink there of turn 1, but at Crowthorne he'll be on the outside here. Very tough. It looks profile-wise like turn 1 of Kota, except it's downhill instead of uphill, but Trehorn can't get the move done. Krulas Gomes holding on to second, and at this stage, you cannot afford to let that gap break out to Alessio Spinelli, because he is the sort of driver that once he gets a gap, he just runs, and there's no way you're going to stop him after that.
Yeah, he was the quickest out of the top 3 in through Sector 3. And at the moment, Krulas Gomes has actually taken just over a 10th out of Spinelli on the first sector. Trehorn, the slowest out of the top 3. Goncalves running in the 32.6s anyway, as there is Francisco Valle Gonzalez, and that is the 85 of Steve Johnson. This is the battle for 9th and 10th. But we go back to the battle for 2nd and 3rd. Krulas Gomes coming under increasing pressure from Alex Trehorn, and even with just under 9 minutes to go here, Jake, I don't think it's going to be a case of if, it's going to be a case of when does Alex Trehorn pull the pin on the grenade and launches it at Pedro Krulas Gomes, because he hasn't done it yet.
Not yet, but he's got to position himself well. He's about 0.4 of a second back as he goes through in towards the Crocodile's corner here. This very tough right-hand bend, and it's all about setup here. It's not often that you get wonderful battles like these at the front, and of course, this is the sort of track you'd say as well that you are very much definitely playing tactical chess at over 200 kilometers an hour, because you have to work out where to place yourself for the battle. A bit of side-by-side there, as that is Francisco Valle Gonzalez then making the move done on Johnson there for 9th position overall, and Trehorn once again trying to set up, and look at that as well. Johnson trying to come straight back at Valle Gonzalez, and he is not going to have any of that, at least for this moment in time, because he's having to try and cover off a lot of moves there, maybe a little bit defensive there into that section. But now you look once more at the battle 2nd and 3rd, and Trehorn looking incredibly close going through the barbecue bend. Krulas Gomes running wide.
Yeah, Trehorn's now got the opportunity. He looks to the left. This is going through the right-hander at Sunset. He's going to carry the momentum through, go wide, whilst Krulas Gomes actually takes quite a lot of curb with both right-hand wheels as they go through into the left hand here. Oh, bit of a mistake there from Krulas Gomes. That allows Trehorn to get a real catapult of momentum out of Clubhouse, down into the S's. Krulas Gomes, like we saw with Spinelli, was soaking up the pressure before Spinelli made the move happen. I think I fear a repeat here of what Trehorn might be able to do as they go through into Loikop.
Oh, and he can't turn in because there was a Krulas Gomes trying to gather the car up on the inside, but Trehorn's done really well off of the exit here. He'll be looking for that second place, uses all of his road tax and a little bit more of that as well as he tries to go through. We go on board to a driver's eye perspective briefly. Trehorn trying around the outside. We've seen it fail twice for Alessio Spinelli. He's still trying to keep himself a nose in. They are side by side. He's again on the outside through Cheetah. He had to pinch at that section, couldn't pinch, and as such Krulas Gomes doing just enough to hold on as they head into Ingwe, the final corner.
Yeah, this has allowed Spinelli to open up a gap of just over 3.2 seconds, and in the process, the number 67 sets the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 47.735. So at the moment, along with the 35 points for a victory, Spinelli will not only get 2 points for finishing the race, but also he's got the fastest lap in his pocket. That's another 5 points as well. As Trahorn looking to go one way, then the other. That's through Crowthorne now, through Juxkay, up towards Barbecue. He looks towards the outside, and yeah, he just runs a little bit wide, unfortunately. And all that hard work that Trahorn has just done, that has opened the gap between himself and Krulas Gomez to just over 7.5 tenths. Not what he needed right now.
The good news for Krulas Gomez is that he has the most lap-led points, so he'll get a few of those in the back pocket on top of that. Trahorn maybe looking to gather things up a little bit, as once again, it's that very aggressive line through Clubhouse you see Krulas Gomez take. It does push him out wide a little bit through that section, but the key is going to be now that Trahorn just gathers himself back up, maybe spends a lap or two just sitting and applying that, I would say, consistent pressure, that almost that push forward to try and make sure that there is not much to worry about in the distant future. There is something to worry about, though, for Francisco Valle Gonzalez. He's still got Johnson behind, who is trying to make his way back through and up into that 9th position. Valle Gonzalez pushing all way too wide, has to gather it up. He's done so well to save that from that moment in time. It does cost him 1 position, but it's just 1 position at that stage in comparison to the entirety of the race.
Yeah, as we've got just under 5 minutes to go, Francisco Valle Gonzalez still trying to close in, and we just had, yeah, basically Darrell Russell running on VR. His Oculus Rift actually failed as the room got dark and couldn't track his movements. Had to retire. That's a real shame for Darrell Russell, but at least one of the good things is the 12 drivers out there at the moment, all of them will score points. So 14 points down for 12th position, and that will be a good start for 12 of the 15 drivers that started. So no points for Darrell Russell, Vance and Casey Lagarde, unfortunately, tonight on the opening round of the season.
Yeah, and that'll be a shame for them as they go through, but Francisco Valle Gonzalez is giving everything, and that is a good track extend there from Johnson. He's trying to keep that one in check as well as they go across the stripe. 3 minutes 50 seconds remaining then in this race, and not over here for 9th position, trying to use the draft to advantage here, but again, just a little look into the mirrors from Francisco Valle Gonzalez. Was never going to make the move, but that's what you would call a 101 lesson from what I would say is the racer's handbook guide to trying to make an overtake.
Yeah, and making it rather calmly and cleanly at the same time. So it just goes to show that if you cross the T's, dot the I's, and you put it at the right place at the right time, 101 says that you'll make it through. But Spinelli, he's basically catapulted his way into the distance. Now he's got past Pedro Krulas Gomez, and the gap now here, Jake, is well over 5 seconds and climbing with just over 180 seconds left in the race.
Key there is that the moment that Krulas Gomez and Trahorn started battling, Spinelli decided to go into full purple mode, and there was no way that that one was going to be stopped from him as he extended that gap. Trahorn now a 1.5 seconds behind Krulas Gomez here as Francisco Valle Gonzalez down at Leibkoff. Then it's one of the highest points on the circuit, but you descend down through this section and look to try and work the mine shaft over towards the Crocodile's corner. I think that for the moment Valle Gonzalez is hoping to still be in range at the end of this one, but he's not there yet. He's just trying to gear it up. He's got 2 laps to figure out how he is going to get by one Mr. Johnson, and that's going to be one way to get that help. He just ran a little bit wide there coming out to the Crocodiles.
Yeah, these GT4s are race circuit cars, not rally or rallycross cars, as we've seen quite a few extra off-track excursions, let's say. But I've just also noticed that Alessio Spinelli has just set the fastest lap of the race. He's done a 1 minute 47.5 flat. That's just under a second off of his pole position in quali.
Yes, it certainly is, and here comes the move then as Johnson is very deep on the brakes and is able to gather it up again against Valle Gonzalez here with that scrap going on. Gap is still 1 second here for 2nd position and 3rd as well, but Johnson here just pushes a little bit too wide through the corner, has to gather it up, and suddenly, hello, my name's Francisco Valle Gonzalez. He's trying to go on the, I would say, the tougher road to get it done on the outside then of Sunset as he takes that committed line through the right. Doesn't have the angle, at least at the moment, try and get himself through, so he will have to stay and wait again through the clubhouse corner. But look how aggressive both of them are right now. They know they are racing hard for this result because they've got Sharp behind, who is closing that gap down if anything is to happen between these two.
Yeah, as looks like the leader very shortly is going to go on to the last lap of the race, because we've just got under 60 seconds, but it is literally these two banging down each other's doors, and Francisco Valle Gonzalez has a little bit of an backward, the back end steps out a little bit to the right hand side going through the first part of Loikop, so that gives Steve Johnson the advantage to stay in 9th position. But you know, Valle Gonzalez will have just over a lap remaining to try and get past the 85. If he had another lap in his pocket, I think that would probably be a little bit easier to do. But I think time's fast running out.
Certainly is. Old Father Time is calling. He is saying that there is not long left for this race. Of course, there are two very important parts of battling that we have seen here today. Firstly, how do you get yourself in front early on in a race like this? Secondly, how on earth do you make an overtake at Kyalami when it's a very momentum-driven circuit? We saw how difficult of a job it was here today as the timer expires here at World Pro Racing's first round of the Alpine GT4 Championship. This, for Alessio Spinelli, will be his final chance then through these left corners. He's done a wonderful job here today of constructing an overtake, forcing mistakes out of Pedro Crulas Gomez, and when he needed to see battles behind him, he ran for the hills with everything that he had got. And through the right there of the Crocodiles, he's got Cheetah and Ingwe to go. He was the fastest man in practice. He was the fastest man in qualifying. He set the fastest lap of the race, and he is going to be duly rewarded here in the opening round here at Kyalami. Alessio Spinelli will take that drive to the line and will take the victory here in round 1 with World Pro Racing.
Yeah, Pedro Crulas Gomez secures 2nd position. Took the initial advantage on Spinelli on the run down to Crowthorns. Alex Strayhorn got to within 1.1 seconds at the flag of Crulas Gomez. Alex Goncalves rounds out the top 4. Good run by Andy Birch. Qualified 5th, finished in 5th. And then the Team Mentalism Alpine of Giuseppe Ganazzo will round out the top 6 ahead of teammate Samuel Rasul, with Rasul actually starting 10th and finishing in 7th. So a good set of results for those two drivers there.
Absolutely good progress there as Carapau makes it to the line. Johnson, in the end, does pick it up against Francisco Valle Gonzalez as they will make that drive over towards the line there. So some very good results up and down the order. And then the last driver to the line will be the other the Valle Gonzalez brother there, Anton, then will be making his drive over towards the finish then at the latest possible opportunity. So a very strong result, a very good start to the season then for Alessio Spinelli with that victory, and you cannot really argue against that sort of dominance on display. He had to work hard for that victory here today, Alex, but the key for Alessio was that he stayed calm under the pressure. There was a lot of focus on how he was supposed to conduct himself, and when he got the move done, that's it, he checked out.
Yeah, very much the case there, Jake, and he effectively becomes our de facto championship leader with around about 42 points, if memory serves me correctly, by what he's had. He's had the fastest lap of the race, that's 5 points. Points for finishing the race, that's 2. He's possibly got the lead max laps, so this could be probably the best part of 45 points to Spinelli's credit as he now makes his way through into the pit lane. But domination all the way through tonight. I'm wondering how things are going to pan out in Portimao in just a week's time.
Absolutely, but now is the time that we get an opportunity to talk to a couple of drivers. Alex Strayhorn is along with us for the ride then right now as he has a little chat with us. He managed to finish off today's racing with that 3rd place. And Alex, it looked like in terms of a race today that it was all about staying in range when the battles came into play. A lot of these battles took chunks of time out of the way that everyone was going about their business, and it seemed at least early on that your troubles were with Goncalves there behind you.
It was a really fun race, first of all, but a close fight with Alex behind. I made a mistake and he got past, but I did manage to get back past him, but that was a fun race. And then you could see that I think the top four of us, we all had similar pace, and we started to just head off in a group at the front. The front two started to pull away, but as you said, when they started fighting, I could see him coming back to me, and I thought there's a chance there, but I couldn't.
Well, there was definitely chances there for you, Alex, especially as we talk about the later stages of that race. You saw the move happen in front, Spinelli getting through then on Pedro Culash Gomez, and then your opportunity looked like it was just about to break in, but it just didn't quite materialise there for second position.
No, there was a few chances, but he defended quite well, and especially into turn one, it's hard to know without, being there on track who's alongside you, so you got to give a bit of extra room. And it got really close at one point. I think it was turn 3 or 4. I was going to try and sneak up the inside, but he saw it coming, and I had to almost hit him in the back, so I had to avoid that, and that lost me quite a bit of time. And by that point, I think my tyres were done, so that was it.
Well, of course, you've got the focus now moving on to next time out. It'll be Portimao a week from now. So a track which has quite a few similarities in terms of, I would say, construct and setup to the likes of a circuit like Kyalami. Is this going to be just an evolution of the work that you've done this week?
Yeah, I think so. I think it has more high-speed corners, which is something that I've been trying to improve. That's where I think I'm losing out. And yeah, it should be a fun race all the time. This car's quite tricky to learn. You got to change your driving style to suit it because it's quite understeery. So yeah, race one in the bag, I think, is a lot of experience, and you can take that forwards and hopefully improve next time.
And Alex, the floor is yours here. Shout out sponsors. Anyone you'd like to thank for that third place finish here today?
I know I told my family, so they're probably watching. Say hi to them. They'll probably take the mick out of me tomorrow.
Well, no worries at all. There, Alex Trehorn finishing off in third position. And I believe the other Alex Goldschmidt here, has found our race winner, Alessio Spinelli.
Yes, Alessio, firstly, congratulations. Dominated in free practice, dominated qualifying, but then the race, the start. Curulas Gomez got past you very quickly, but you fought very hard to get back, and then at the end of the race, you were way ahead. How are you feeling after a dominant evening here at Kyalami?
Well, hello to everyone. Yeah, I have a good feeling with the car at the moment. It's be fit, so I was able to push nice in corners, or to have a good exit and an entrance. And yes, I see that other pilots are leader in difficult, but could be that the priority or nice number of hours I spent to try. Also with another championship I was made, so could be the reason I have more feeling than other. And the race, Pedro is he was hard drivers to overtake, because it was closing every door. Was near to open, but finally, how we do it.
Yeah, and next week we head to Portimao. very similar in terms of the driving style that you have to employ, like at Kyalami. How are you looking? Are you looking forward to that racetrack? And could we see a very similar performance next week?
I hope. I was in Portimao only one time in my sim driver career, so I have to retake practice on the track. But I'm hoping I will be fast as well of today.
Well, Alessio Spinelli, our first winner of the Alpine GT4 Championship and our points leader. Congratulations. We'll see you next week at the virtual recreation of Portimao.
Thank you everyone, thanks for fun.
And also, Jake, I think you found our our runner-up tonight, Pedro Crueles Gomez. Over to you.
I absolutely have. Now, Pedro, that was a very important qualifying by your standards, because you seemingly just got quicker and quicker as times went on, and it seemed for a moment you were the fastest of everyone. It just seemed that, at least from qualifying, Alessio just managed to put the one up on you.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to me finally be interviewed from you here in World Pro Racing. And well, first of all, I always like to, when I compromise to get in a championship like this, to do a good preparation 2-3 days before practice and set the car or whatever. How it needs to be when we know we're gonna have tough contenders like these ones they have here. So I couldn't done this because I do IRL racing here in Brazil, and I had my first racing of the season this weekend, so I was a lot busy the week before and this weekend, and I came like 40 minutes before the practice session over, so I could manage I think 18 laps on the practice, and I was using the qualifier to keep making my setup for the quality and the race. So I'm happy I could find a good setup with this very, very few time I had, and I was not expecting to fight with Spinelli for the race, because he was half a second faster on the last fast lap on quali, but I could manage one more little change. I risked it then a lot, because everyone says in sim racing it's 99% you get fucked when you change your setup to the race. And I did one little change and it worked. I think we had similar speeds until the half of the race. From the half of the race I don't know if he managed better his tires, driving, or he had a better setup. I have to work better on it. And it was very fun, very pleasure to fight with him. It's very annoying to me to defend position like it was today, and when I had the opportunity to attack him after he overtook me, I forgot the name, the driver finished third, came very, very, very aggressive behind me, and I have to defend him, and then Spinelli went away, so there was my chance of winning. It was gone there, and that was time to fight to hold the second place to the end, and I could make it. I'm happy, and I want to thank my team Rookie Monsters, and my sponsors VMR and the Delphi Automotive Business, and let's make a good effort, better for next race, have a better preparation to make more hard time for the other drivers.
Apologise there for any industrial language you may or may not have heard there, but Pedro Crueles Gomez then finishing things off in second position after a wonderful drive. Mr. Goldschmidt, we now take our little turn to Portimao, a track which holds many similar characteristics, a little bit quicker, very damaging, of course, on the left-hand side tyres around that place. It's going to be a really important battle, and it's going to be very dependent on how hot it's going to be on the coast of Portugal.
Also down in the Algarve, what you've also got to consider, having actually viewed the circuit from my own eyes in real life, the amount of elevation changes, the inclines, the descents. It is going to be one hell of a roller coaster at Portimao. Yes, as you say, the left side tyres will get an absolute torturing, but it will be down to whoever can absolutely maximise the best way of managing the degradation, managing the setup, and also getting that all-important centre of gravity right in these cars. It's going to be a true test for everybody, and even though these cars only weigh 1,100 kilos, boy, are they fun to look at whilst they're racing.
They absolutely are. The only place you can catch the Alpine GT4 Championship is with us at World Pro Racing. If you haven't had the chance already, you can like, share and subscribe for more amazing content brought to you by the team here at World Pro Racing. And of course, all of the wonderful places we've been streaming here today, to YouTube, to Facebook Live and to Twitch, as well as ESTV, the Esports Television Network, Motorsport.tv and to TVM Sport as well. A massive thanks to go to the team that's been working hard behind the scenes. The FIA accredited stewarding team of Adrian Fagayo and George Muscat have once again been working incredibly hard, as well as the team on the cameras, Justin and Nathan Mifsud, who have been putting in a very good display for all of you to see all of the wonderful action that's going on. It's not the only thing as well that's going on either. We've got 2 more races in the next 2 days coming up. First and foremost, we've got another GT4 Championship coming up over on Assetto Corsa Competizione. That'll be coming up tomorrow, same time, same place. And then the day after that, it is the World Pro Racing ACC Sprint Series coming into view as well. Their 3rd season starts out in earnest, so make sure you keep your eyes out on that. But from Alex Goldschmidt alongside me, myself, Jake Sperry, it's been a pleasure again, but Alessio Spinelli found the opportunities that were needed. It was not an easy race to pick things off, and it looked, at least from the beginnings, like it was going to be one race after qualifying that was going to be a runaway. Far from the sort. We've got a championship on our hands, and Portimao is our next port of call.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.